Salute. The streets are buzzing. Welcome in tonight. We talk about the latest moves as the New York Knicks continue to add depth and solid additions with veteran guard Malcolm Brogdon. Right, Knicks fans around the world have been talking about Malcolm Brogdon for years, and now he is finally a New York Knick to go with Landry Shamet, Garrison Mathews on a camp deal, and the New York Knicks are exploring trades to free up some salary cap space so that they can fit all of these guys in, man. We're going to take you through the latest news in terms of what the Knicks are going to do to clear up this space, right? Reports from Ian Begley dropped just minutes ago. We'll take you through the calculations. Who would have to get traded to fit all of these veterans in? Are the Knicks going to do it? Right? We made big moves on the eve of training camp last season, and it looks like the same thing is going to happen again, man. Salute to the chat. I see you. Welcome in, Replay Squad. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. If you're new, welcome in. Hope you've had a blessed weekend. Saturday night, the feeling is right to break this thing down. As the New York Knicks, man, have got Brogdon, they've got Shamet on 2 non-guaranteed deals, right? But the reports are coming out that the Knicks are aiming to have those 2 guys make the final squad. They're on non-guaranteed deals right now, which is going to allow the Knicks a little bit of time to figure it all out, man, before the final squads need to get finalized, right? And we're going to talk about, we've got a poll in the chat, actually, and we'll talk about the moves that the Knicks will have to do, right? Tyler Kolek, a lot of conversations yesterday, today, that he is the most logical player that would need to get traded to free space to get Brogdon and Shamet on the squad, right? But there's also a report minutes ago saying that Dardier or even Deuce McBride, right, would allow the Knicks to fit Brogdon and Shamet together and still add a 15th guy later this season too. If Kolek was to get traded, then the Knicks could still fit Brogdon and Shamet, but they'd only have 44 grand below the second apron, which wouldn't allow the Knicks to sign a 15th guy at all throughout the whole season, right? So we've obviously got some news too. Garrison Mathews is on a camp deal too. Now he's more of a long shot to make the final squad, but if the Knicks can clear up enough space, then they might like what they see from him in training camp. And some other veterans, Thomas Bryant, the big man from Indiana, has been working out at the Knicks facility as well. Trey Jemison III, the big man out of the Lakers from last season, is also on the Knicks radar as well. So, I mean, man, the Knicks are stacking up the talent for training camp. And the Knicks can bring 21 guys into training camp. So we'll take you through the latest. Ian Begley in the latest report also says that Mohamed Diawara is the favorite to land the rookie exception deal, right? If the Knicks are at 14 guys and the Knicks don't make a trade, they could obviously fit Shamet or Brogdon, not both of them, if they don't make a trade. And Mohamed Diawara would be that guy. So let us know. How does that sound to y'all as I do a roll call? The Autism Boy Cottage, salute. Johnny, what's good? Ernest, great to see ya. Hope all is well in Knicks land. We're buzzing, man. Look, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of these moves, first and foremost. Malcolm Brogdon coming in is that veteran talent that we've been looking for at the guard spot. I mean, he can handle the ball in a pinch, tough environment situations in the playoffs. He can stroke it. Now, the health is going to be the major factor, right? But is he going to have to play many minutes? As many minutes as anticipated in the past? Probably not. You know, you got Clarkson. Now you got Deuce McBride. Now, I'm kind of surprised to hear Deuce McBride's name even mentioned in any trade scenarios, man. To me, that makes me feel uneasy. You know, I would love to keep Deuce, and there's no reason to trade Deuce right now, right? If a team's offering you a first-round draft pick, I know Deuce is going to be a free agent coming up, I think after next season, but I don't think it's a move we need to force right now. I think it can be Kolek, even to a lesser extent Dardier, which I'm still not a fan of. But with that said, I do think that, you know, the Knicks are going to make a trade. It does really, really seem like it, guys. And don't be shocked if a trade drops, you know, any day now. You know, training camp's only like less than 2 weeks away. You know, we made that big trade for Cat on the eve of media day, right? I think this move's going to happen a little bit earlier. You know, Chris Persianen of Clutch Points is reporting here that some teams have already offered a deal for Tyler Kolek, right? And that deal would look something like absorbing TKO's contract, and they would send the Knicks, you know, rights to probably a stash player that doesn't require any salary, and hopefully draft compensation as well. I see some reports out there that the Knicks would have to attach an asset to TKO or Dardier. I don't buy that. I think there would be a team out there that would be willing to absorb one of those two players. I mean, there's upside there. Now, what would the Knicks get back? In the case of Dardier, I mean, I would love us to get a protected late first round pick, right? If you're going to part with him, you know, it would be a tough pill to swallow, in my opinion. But obviously, for the future, right now, we're trying to win. We're trying to compete. This is my projected 10-man rotation with Malcolm Brogdon in here. You got Huck Porty back to the bench. You've got Landry Shamet, who would be on the bench. You would have Diawara, and you would have, you know, Dardier, assuming Tyler Kolek is the guy that gets traded, right? If we, again, I repeat, if we don't make any trade, which I think is more on the less likely side now, that this has come out by reports. And remember, this stuff doesn't leak out unless, you know, the wheels are in motion. You know, Stefan Bondi reports that executives around the NBA are expecting the Knicks to clear a space to fit both Brogdon and Shamet. But if we don't make a trade, then only one of Brogdon or Shamet can make it. And I think the decision is quite logical. It would have to be Malcolm Brogdon, right? But the fact that Landry's taken a non-guaranteed deal to allow the Knicks to figure this all out, I salute to him. Just like I salute to Jarl in the chat. We got Mike, what's good? I'm feeling good. Prezi the boss, what's good? Yeah, we're all buzzing right now. Let me get to a few questions and comments. The Autism Boy says, we would have loved to see the Knicks trade for Kevin Durant earlier in the offseason. I think the asking price was really high, but yeah, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how much Kevin Durant's got left. I think that would have required too much of a shake-up, in my opinion, man. But I respect your comment on that one. Ernest says, goodbye, Kolek. Let's go, Knicks. Yeah, Ernest, it looks like Kolek could be that guy, you know, and it would be unlucky because, you know, he hasn't really had a fair shake, but I get it, you know. I think we could be doing him a solid. You know, you could look at it that way as well. You know, he's 25 now. I'm sure he wants to get going with his NBA career. You know, no doubt. He's a young player, you know, chomping at the bit to get some opportunities. And look, it's a good sign that, you know, the reports from Chris Persianen and that a team is at least, you know, contacted the Knicks to offer something to take Tyler Kolek, and that would allow us to fit Brogdon and Shamet straight in. And if it was up to me, depending on, as long as we're not giving up any asset to part ways with Tyler Kolek, as long as we're receiving, you know, a pick and maybe, you know, a draft, a stash asset for the future, I'd do it, because I think Brogdon and Shamet on the roster would have more value for us right now than Tyler Kolek. Now, Tyler Kolek, as I said, you know, I admit he hasn't had a fair opportunity, and that could come back to bite us at some point in the future, but I'm not really worried about that, you know, too much right now, fam. So what do y'all think? I've got the poll in the chat, right? To make this all happen, that's the most logical step. Now, the second scenario is that the New York Knicks trade either Dardier or Deuce McBride. And this isn't coming from me. This is the latest report from Ian Begley that I'm about to bring up right now. So he gives us the full scenarios. Yeah, so we salute to Ian Begley, man. This dropped just minutes ago, so you're getting the latest breaking news, right? So for the Knicks to keep both Brogdon and Shamet on the squad and be able to add a 15th guy, the Knicks would have to pay Dardier or Miles McBride, and that would offer a direct path to be able to fit Brogdon and Shamet straight away at their veteran minimum salaries, and it would allow the Knicks some flexibility to add a 15th guy at some point later in the season. Now, that's very, very unlikely in my opinion, but I mean, the fact that Ian Begley mentions that in the first paragraph of the latest report, I mean, there's a genuine possibility that that could happen. Now, probably not Miles McBride, but definitely Dardier. So, Kolek or Dardier, but Dardier obviously would allow the Knicks to a little bit more cap room to be able to add a 15th guy. It might be Garrison Mathews later in the season. Maybe Dardier is just a guy that gets us more assets back, like I said. But it doesn't make sense to me because why are you keeping Tyler Kolek in the first place? You know, if you welcome, fair enough, if you can trade Dardier and clear up more space, but that leaves TKO in the same situation. You know, he's not going to get minutes ahead of Brogdon, Deuce, Clarkson, Brunson. And so, is there a scenario, guys, that Dardier and Tyler Kolek both get traded? That's a possibility as well, fam. The New York Knicks they ain't messing around. And I kind of like it. I kind of like the ruthlessness of it because, yeah, they like those players. They drafted them and they believe in them. But we're at the point now where, the East is wide open, man, and the championship is within reach, right? Think about it. If you're going up against Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals, if you're going up against Oklahoma or, Denver or the Rockets in the NBA Finals, these veterans could be the difference between losing or winning, in the words of, Brogdon and Shamet and some of these other guys. So that is the latest report, guys, coming through. Also, as I said before, Mohamed Diawara. So for those that have been wondering, conversations, discourse back and forth, who would be that rookie? Ian Begley reveals it right here. So the plan heading into camp is for New York to give Diawara that rookie deal, right? So that's the report coming out minutes ago. Diawara is going to be that guy that gets the rookie deal. Dink Pate's ineligible because he wasn't a draft pick. He was a signed, undrafted free agent. McCullough won't be able to get that deal. But those guys will probably get the two-way. That's kind of a no-brainer, fam. Those guys will probably get the two-way alongside maybe James Nagy or someone else. So, yeah, we continue to shout you guys out, man. You guys know my thoughts on this one. I would keep Pacome. I would definitely keep Miles McBride. For right now, I would probably do the Kolek trade, without knowing what that trade offer is, assuming it's just going to get his salary off the books and that we don't have to give anything else up. Here we see Kolek in the latest scrimmage at the New York City Sky Lifetime Gym, right? With Jordan Brink. We had Clarkson, Malik Beasley, Hardaway, Vanderbilt, Mac McClung put in that work. Prezi the boss also says here, what is all this talk about trying to add Thomas Bryant? Knicks for clicks going crazy. Well, it's kind of is and it isn't, fam. It's legit. Thomas Bryant is actually working out for the New York Knicks. Now, you could look at it a number of ways. Maybe we're looking at, bringing him into the G League if he doesn't, land himself on a regular roster. It could be a case of like we're just trying to mend relationships, maybe throughout the season. As I said, around January 5th is when the NBA teams can sign 10-day deals, right? And if we suffer an injury to one of our big men, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, then the Knicks will at least have had that relationship with Thomas Bryant. So the Knicks do like to, to give guys a bone and give them an opportunity, right? I think Thomas Bryant, his agent, will appreciate the fact that they've been able to work out for the Knicks. A lot of these free agents are hoping to land a contract in the NBA. They don't want their NBA dream to end. Now, one guy's New York dream has ended, and reports just come out that Cam Payne will not return to the Knicks. Now, that was kind of very obvious, but that report has just come out. So Cameron Payne, and I'm going to assume Precious Achiuwa and DeLon Wright won't return to the New York Knicks. But let's pull up some Malcolm Brogdon highlights, because that was the big news of yesterday. And however way the New York Knicks can make it happen, we know that it's very likely to happen that Malcolm Brogdon now is going to be on the Knicks' final 14 or 15-man squad, right? They'll figure it out, but it looks like he's going to be there. Most likely Landry as well, and it looks like it's going to be at the expense of one of the young players. Now, as I said earlier in the stream, if Dardier or Miles McBride get traded, that frees up enough space for the Knicks to be able to add 15 guys, which means Brogdon, Shamet, and another guy, whether it be Garrison Mathews or someone else, can actually come on the squad. But I would keep Dardier. I would definitely keep Miles McBride. I would do the Kolek deal. That's my thoughts. We're going to get the opinions of you guys now, and in the poll in the chat as well. Nick Fan Salute says Pacome has more upside than Kolek. Yeah, he's got the defense, he's got the size, and he's got the shooting stroke. So for me, that gives him the major edge in terms of being valuable to the New York Knicks. Yeah, Prezi says also, especially if they have more faith in Diawara. 100% agree, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Diawara can do in a Knicks uni. I like that pickup, and the fact that we're not stashing him and we're bringing him over shows real intent to give him a chance. Johnny also says we just added St. Joe's coach. We gave that development role to Billy Lang, so that was a great bit of news that just came out. Prioritizing some development, but there's still going to be Dink Pate. There's still going to be Diawara. I think McCullough will still be around. And most likely one of Dardier or Kolek will still be around as well. And don't forget, we do have our first round draft pick this year, guys. I know we traded all those picks for Mikal Bridges, but those were every other year. The NBA rules stipulate that you have to hold on to your own draft pick every other year. So this is the year we have our first round draft pick. Now, we're probably going to win the East, and it's probably going to be the 29th pick, depending on, who wins the West. But it's going to be a first-round pick. So is that first-round pick going to have a spot to fit on the roster, the fact that we're so stacked? So I kind of understand why the New York Knicks are really looking at, shedding some weight. I'm not going to say dead weight, because that would be unfair of Kolek and Dardier and that. I don't think those guys have had enough opportunities. But, it would definitely be, shedding some of that weight to fit some of these vets in. Yeah, I'm getting to all the comments. Appreciate the patience. Autism Boy says, yo, what team is better than the 25 Knicks or the Timberwolves? Look, very, very small handful of teams, fam, that might be better. I say might. It's not guaranteed, but I do think it's going to be Oklahoma, maybe the Rockets, the Denver Nuggets. That's about it, really, man. You could say Cleveland, but they're dealing with some injury concerns. So, yeah, fam, I think we're a top 3 in the NBA right now before the first game happens. Bob says we should have used Pacome more. Also, don't think Brogdon can work with this team. Yeah, I've heard a few people kind of express some trepidation about Brogdon, and I get the health concerns. Where does he fit? Is he going to guard some small forwards? I know he's 6'5". Is he going to be mobile enough? Are those ankles and knees going to hold up? Either way, I think it's worth a flyer, fam, as a non-guaranteed, veteran minimum. I think that's big time, fam. And look, I want to bring this up as well, just to show you guys how persistent the New York Knicks were in getting Malcolm Brogdon, right? So we're going to hear from ESPN Brian Windhorst, right? And he's going to talk about how persistent the Knicks were to get Malcolm Brogdon over the line.
The Knicks are going to have basically well, I am told that the Knicks were on Malcolm Brogdon for over 2 months, that this was a guy they really wanted to sign this summer. But Brogdon wanted to see if he could get some better offers first. He didn't. Now, this is a non-guaranteed deal. And I want to point out the Knicks signed 3 players this week. They signed Landry Shamet and Garrison Mathews. And from what I understand, the Knicks are going to have basically a competition to see which of those 3 guys can make the team. One of them is definitely going to make it. Maybe they can do 2 if they make another move. But it's going to be a training camp competition. And all 3 of these guys have been in NBA rotations in the recent past. So the Knicks definitely feel like they've upgraded their bench.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the latest, right? The Knicks were aiming to sign Malcolm Brogdon for 2 months, right? And one of the reasons the Knicks couldn't get Brogdon last season, there was a report, I think Chris Persianen reported that the Knicks were interested in Brogdon last season, right? But he wanted to start. The Knicks said, no, you ain't going to start on our squad, right? But Brogdon was still interested, and 1 year goes by, and here he comes, man, an opportunity to join an NBA contender. But the Knicks have been waiting for 2 months to try to get Malcolm Brogdon over the line, right? He was waiting for better offers in terms of financially, and they didn't come right now. So we kind of land another steal, right? And here is his latest highlights from, playing on the Wizards from last season. Guys, welcome into the building. Everyone joining us, smash that like button. Give us your thoughts, questions out here, and comment section for Replay Squad. Man, the Knicks are making moves, right? I've been waiting for this situation for years where the Knicks are contenders, and we're at the point where, free agents want to come to y'all, it's kind of like y'all the hottest guy in the room or the prettiest girl in the room, right? You don't have to call up these players or their agents, man. They come to you. We're in a situation now where we've got all these veterans working out for the New York Knicks and wanting to join the squad, man, for peanuts, right, to win that championship. And it's championship or bust for this season. Bob says we have too many guards. We should use Pacome because he's a wing defender out there. Yeah, look, hopefully Mike Brown gives Pacome Dardier, an opportunity. It's going to be his 2nd season. I do think he's a young man, and he just needs to be patient. I think we need to be patient with Pacome Dardier. I think, obviously, he's earning a significant, rookie deal, and so we should be using him. Now, is Brogdon going to be able to play in 82 games? I doubt it. Is Clarkson at his age, 33 years old, is he going to be able to play heavy minutes for all 82? Hopefully. But, history tells us that there is going to be some injuries along the way. We are kind of a little bit light with the ball handling, so I get it. Deuce McBride, is better off the ball. I think we've seen that over the last 2 seasons, guys. Salute to John and Coach in the building. I'll get to your comments in a second. And I do hope that, we can make a trade that makes sense, which is Tyler Kolek, in my opinion. And look, it would be doing, Kolek a favor, in my opinion, man. We gave him a nice deal. We gave him the richest second round deal in history, right? But now we can go to Kolek and say, look, man, as much as we'd love to give you some minutes, it's just not going to happen for y'all. So we're going to send y'all to a team that really wants y'all. It could be the Charlotte Hornets. I think the Chicago Bulls could be a good opportunity for Kolek, where it's not going to be too much of a threat for us because they're not going to be, they're not going to be contending. And he could be a backup for Kobe White. He could be a backup for Josh Giddey or someone out there. We could send him over to Utah. We could send him out west even and free up some space. Look, it is a little bit of a gamble. Kolek could pan out and be a really solid backup point guard for 10 years in the NBA. but we don't have time for that. We could just sign a backup veteran minimum guy like Malcolm Brogdon right now. But yeah, the Dardier thing is serious, man. It is real serious. Now, what do y'all think about Garrison Mathews and Thomas Bryant? Give us your thoughts on that. Prezi says, I'm slowly warming up to the Malcolm Brogdon because of our magician, Casey Smith. Yep, that's a great shout, too. John also says, Malcolm and Shamet are great pickups. They are probably going to trade TKO. Yep, that seems the most likely scenario, fam. I'm just curious to see whether or not we could actually get, a pick back. It might be, we trade Kolek into some cap space, and maybe we can get back, a draft and stash guy. We know the Knicks love receiving a draft and stash guy that they can use in a future trade. But it would be nice if we could at least get another second round pick back. Maybe we can then draft another Kolek for the future, man, and just recycle this baby. D-Ras, salute. What's good? Coach says, CT, you should have added Deuce to that trade list. Look, I'm surprised that Deuce's name has surfaced, but like I said, Ian Begley, as I revealed earlier in the stream, if you missed it, man, his latest report that dropped like 15 minutes ago basically suggests that Dardier and Deuce McBride, are candidates to get traded. He wouldn't throw those names out there unless there's a possibility. And look, if you're an opposing NBA team and you're, in dialogue and conversations with the Knicks, you're definitely going to be saying, what the hell's up with those guys, because those guys have more value than Tyler Kolek. We weren't born yesterday. We understand from an opposing team's perspective, Dardier and Deuce McBride would be very attractive if they could get those players for the cheap. But the reason they're in trade conversations with those two guys is they would clear up the most money. And if we've got Garrison Mathews here ready to go, he's a sharpshooter, plays well off the ball. They see Deuce McBride as more of an off-ball guy now. Let's not forget that. I do like Deuce on the ball at times, but he's best off the ball. And if you've got these other guys that are ready and waiting, and you can clear up some money, look, I wouldn't want to be the one that trades Deuce, but definitely I would be open to trading Dardier. It's not a killer for me. I would prefer to keep him, but it just depends on what they want to do. They want to fill out this roster to 15 spots. I think none of this would be in consideration if the Knicks weren't trying to fill 15 spots, right? They're probably looking at it like, yeah, we could just stay status quo and keep the 14 guys. We cut one of Shamet or Brogdon, we sign Diawara, we keep Kolek, we keep Dardier, and we keep it moving. They're probably looking at it like, look, what's the point in keeping Kolek when he's not going to get minutes all season, right? Again, you're just keeping a guy on the books, and you're holding him back. And they might also be looking at it like, look, it's a long season, right? 14 guys, we don't have any financial flexibility. So let's go out there and make a couple of moves and sign one of these vets, or a couple of these vets. Now, in terms of Thomas Bryant, I mean, he looked okay in some of those games, man. He hit that huge 3 on the Knicks, man. That was kind of the backbreaker. But he's very volatile, man. He can lose his cool in a minute. He's been working out with the Knicks, so he could just be a camp deal for now. Garrison Mathews, though, I think the Knicks do have kind of warm interest in seeing what Garrison Mathews can bring to this squad and maybe keep him around. Right? Apoca Nick now and Dirty Dancer and J Dub are in the building. Great to see y'all. Dara says, I'm a huge fan of point guard Kolek, but he had to be the sacrificial lamb. You said it, fam. You said it. Maybe Tyler Kolek has to walk so that the next guy can run, man. And come in. Look, if we can recycle his, spot with a future asset, like a second round draft pick, I'm not going to lose too much sleep. don't forget, guys, you can always buy a second round pick for the most part. We found Diawara in this year's draft. We got, McCullough and Huck Porty in last year's draft. And so I'm not really going to lose sleep over a second round pick, but I would have loved to see Colette get a chance. Coach says we are getting smaller, and that's not good. If we were to trade Dardier, I think that would hurt us with the size. I agree. If we trade Kolek, then we might be getting bigger. We are getting bigger with Brogdon. And yeah, like Prezi said with Casey Smith, he had a perfect track record last season, man. We had a really good run with injuries, man. Even OG Anunoby stayed healthy, man, with all the wear and tear that Tibbs gave OG. Mikal Bridges, man, he played every single minute and some, and he stayed healthy as well. Mitchell Robinson, once he got back, and they actually had a really good plan that they executed to keep Mitch healthy. So that panned out as well, man. I'm definitely giving Casey Smith a ring, man, if we end up winning a championship. J Dub says the New York Knicks are going to compartmentalize the young asset we have. Kolek and McCullough are 25 years old with no upside. Yeah, I guess NBA upside they do have, but limited upside based on their college careers. I would love to keep McCullough around. I think he's going to be on the two-way. But look, I do think Kolek could get you a second-round pick. I'm looking at the Phoenix Suns, man. Dirty Dancer might know a little bit more about Phoenix out there. But I do think Phoenix could do with a backup point guard. I do think Chicago could be another one. Charlotte Hornets, they might move on from LaMelo Ball. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to look at. When it comes to potential fits. But here's Kolek working out in New York City. He's kind of waiting to see what the future holds. Coach said I'd trade Deuce before I'd trade Pacome. That's interesting, fam. My biggest thing with Deuce isn't related to his game. It's his financial situation. We all know that he's going to get a better deal, and he's a free agent waiting to happen. So if I could get back a first-round pick for Deuce, I'm still reluctant to do it, but I would actually understand if the Knicks did it. Dirty Dancer said even before adding Brogdon, I think they had a top 5 or 6 bench. If Brogdon works out, they are golden. Most definitely, I think Brogdon's still good enough in terms of his game. Now, Autism Boy says, is he overrated? Possibly a little bit, based on recency bias. He was the reigning sixth man with Celtics a couple of years back, man, when Emmanuel Quickley missed out. But I do think that you got to look at what you're paying for. We're not paying like a mini exception. We're not paying a mid-level. We're paying the vets minimum. And better yet, it's non-guaranteed, man. So for any of y'all worried about Malcolm Brogdon's health, what if he does his knee or he hurts himself and he's out for 3 months? We can just cut him, man. Cold-blooded. We can just cut him exactly like we did with Landry last season once he wrecked his shoulder. And so, yeah, trust this front office. They know what they're doing. And there's a reason they didn't blow their wad earlier to bring him in, with one of these exceptions, right? We waited patiently. We kept dialogue with Brogdon's agent and said, hey, we're not going to give you any more money than the minimum. But if it gets to the late in free agency and you don't have any better deals, you know where to find us. And I think Malcolm Brogdon, man, he waited, and nobody came. So he's a New York Knick right now. The Suns are using Gillespie is a pretty sad sack. That's a sad situation out there. Obviously they went for the Ryan Dunn pick ahead of Tyler Kolek, but I think they did have interest in Tyler Kolek. Now this is the recent highlights that we looked at Now, we're going to go a few more years back, and this is Malcolm Brogdon's six-man year with the Boston Celtics. So this is basically peak. We're not going to get this level of Malcolm Brogdon, but this is peak Malcolm Brogdon, man. This was a guy that was better than Peyton Pritchard. Whatever Peyton Pritchard is, Malcolm Brogdon was better than him at his prime. Del Mar, salute. Dirty also says Bucks also make a good sense for Kolek as a hometown guy. Yeah, they got Cole Anthony, which was a really good pickup late in free agency. But yeah, Kolek could slot in as the third string point guard for them. And look, let's not forget about our guy, DeLon Wright. Maybe Garrison Mathews isn't that 15th guy. Maybe it's DeLon Wright. Maybe it's Trey Lyles. So as we speak right now, guys, where I'm sitting is I think all cards are on the table. They could definitely trade Deuce or Cole or Dardier to free up more space to fit a 15th guy. It doesn't seem like it's all about Brogdon and Shamet. I think they really want to get another guy onto the squad, whether it be Bryant, Garrison Mathews, Seth Curry even. They are working a lot of guys out. Right? The New York Knicks are getting busy. Daras says Shamet is insurance for Brogdon. Yep, I do think Clarkson's going to play a lot of minutes. And look, he's fairly durable. So I don't think there's any concerns over Jordan Clarkson. And there should be plenty of minutes to go around. Prezi says, if you get rid of Kolek only outside of Captain Clutch and Deuce, everyone will be 6'4" and up. All of our youngings will be 6'6", 6'11", so we're good with the size. Yeah. Let's not forget, guys, the young talent in the pipeline. We've got Dink Pate. We want to give him minutes. And quite frankly, what I've seen in that one summer league, I'm all aboard the Dink Pate hype train, man. Forget about Kolek at the moment, because I think Dink Pate is bigger, more athletic. His three-point stroke actually looked more consistent. As funky as it looks, it was effective. And also, he is obviously a lot bigger than Tyler Kolek. And I mean a lot bigger at 6'8". Kolek is basically quite limited with his size. Dirty Dancer says, Garrison Mathews is rock solid, and he has a real shot at either guy's spot. I think for what the Knicks like, which is corner spacing and shooting, most definitely. And I think if there's one injury to a shooting guard, you could see Garrison Mathews get those minutes. You could see him get Deuce's minutes if Deuce was to get moved. You could see him get Mikal Bridges minutes if he has to miss a game. And look, I love Josh Hart, but you could lower Josh Hart's minutes down to like 18 or 25. And you could give maybe 10 or 15 minutes to Garrison Mathews, especially in the postseason. Continue to get to all your comments, but we have a super chat coming through from Jason Benjamin. Got the streets buzzing. Really appreciate it, Jason. Big up. Jason says there is no way Pacome should be in any salary cap dump just to keep Brogdon or Shamet. Kolek, I can see, then Dink is your developmental point guard, in my opinion. Yep, 100% agree. As I said before, I think Dink Pate could then just take over Kolek's, limited opportunities for now. And look, you kind of stole him as an undrafted guy. So that was a really, really, really savvy move. And look, I thought this is worth saying. From what I heard, Kolek was a Tibbs guy, was a Tibbs draft pick. Right. So take that for what it is. Right. Not saying that Leon and the front office didn't like Kolek. But you kind of see Thibodeau's not here, and then you kind of see like they're willing to cut bait with Kolek. From what I heard around that draft period, Tibbs really wanted Tyler Kolek, which is kind of fascinating because he didn't really play him. But it is what it is. Tibbs liked Tyler Kolek, and he was in favor of that draft, that pick. Tibbs is no longer here, so we can kind of see now. what's going to happen, man. And look, you look at a guy like a Dink Pate, a Brogdon pickup. That's definitely, William Wesley, Leon Rose, Mike Brown. That's that written all over that, fam. Um, but yeah, I like the Garrison Mathews situation. Thomas Bryant, I mean, he's more of kind of a Westchester guy. Moses Brown actually got moved, I think. Or he got picked up by someone. So yeah, a lot of opportunities are ahead for Ariel Hukporty. Don't forget we have James Nagy as well. He could be on the two-way deal. J Dub says, I think the trade is Kolek and Deuce. Wow. That's definitely going to cause some shockwaves if it is Deuce, but I'll be interested to see what we could get back, because Deuce is a guy that would put a team over the top. If you're the Denver Nuggets, if you have a little bit of cap space like you're the Houston Rockets, man, Deuce is a guy that could put a team over the top, man, and I would be asking for a first-round draft pick. He's still got 2 years left at a really cheap number as well. Or at least, if I'm trading Deuce, if it's not a first-round draft pick, it better be, maybe a future stash asset and 4 second-rounders or something. Coach says, Dink Pate is the reason I'm willing to trade Deuce and Kolek. I would love to see a little bit more of Dink Pate before I move on from either of those guys, but it does make sense. It does make sense for real. Now the reports about, Cam Payne not coming back, we kind of knew that the writing was on the wall. But Delon Wright, Precious Achua, we haven't really heard anything recently. I did see a video of Delon Wright, who was actually interviewed, and he spoke about he would love to come back to the New York Knicks. So maybe we could extend a branch to Delon Wright for a Cam deal, possibly. But we're stacking up the vets right now. Johnny says Clarkson's 10 times better than Payne. All of those games Knicks lost because of Cam's off nights are gone. Yeah, I think we're just gradually upgraded, fam. I think Cam Payne was good for what he was earning. I mean, he did a job, and he helped us get, further than we've been in 25 years. But unfortunately, he kind of, outside of that huge game against Detroit, he kind of failed us, late, down the stretch. AP, salute, great to see ya. The Autism Boy says, is the New York Knicks squad making the playoffs, bro? Is that, are you trying to make me laugh? Of course, definitely. The New York Knicks will be in the playoffs, fam. Most definitely. Coach says, I'd like to see Pacome get 12 of Hart's minutes. It's really going to be interesting to see which way Mike Brown goes, but I do think it's going to be a lot more diplomatic. We know Thibodeau was very like, okay, you're my guy. Okay, you're just going to have to wait your turn. But I do think Mike Brown's going to be more likely to change it up. Now, y'all heard that story about Austin Rivers? Now, I take what Austin Rivers says with a grain of salt, but I could kind of see what he said, being something that could happen with Tibbs, where, Austin Rivers came in first practice. Tibbs came to him and said, look, I want a Derrick Rose, right? But, you're going to do okay. So he's basically a straight shooter, is Thibodeau. And I think a lot of these guys kind of knew where they stood, right? He would have said to some of those fringe guys, look, I'm not going to use you unless I need to. Glenn, salute. Says, I knew you would be all over this, why I tuned in. I'm worried about Brogdon and his health. He missed a lot of games these last 2 years. Yeah, Glenn, I think as long as we can keep Deuce or Dink Pate, I think we're not going to miss much, moving on from Kolek. But I do think Brogdon's flexible defensively. He could guard twos. He could even guard some threes. So, and I don't think there's going to be the same level of wear and tear in terms of minutes. don't forget, Hart's going to be coming off the bench. No doubt about it. And the fact that Hart was a starter last season playing 38 plus, his minutes are going to go way down. And he's going to be a lot more healthy. And he's going to be able to actually become a starter if there's an injury. So we do kind of have some flexibility that way. On the health front. Luis Rivera says trading Deuce is crazy talk. It's a reality, fam. I agree with you. It is crazy, but we're talking about it because it's reality. Ian Begley, all those that are plugged in, fam. Those that don't know, these reports are coming out that the Knicks are in discussions with teams trying to clear a space. Now, the Deuce situation is less likely, but there's a real scenario that it could happen. I hope it doesn't happen. But I'm also looking at where the organization sees Deuce's future, and they see him as an off-ball guy. They see him as an off-ball guy. So that's going to be interesting to see what Mike Brown thinks about it. Now, thankfully, we do have Deuce on a really good deal for 2 more years. I would make the most of it because when he becomes a free agent, we're not going to be able to re-sign him unless we go over the second apron. And don't forget, we have to re-sign Mitchell Robinson as well. So could the Knicks be looking at some of these cheaper guys to maybe, fill the role? AP says, is Leon going to trade Kolek for a 1-year rental? Yeah, basically. I think that's a real possibility, fam. But look at it. Look at it, the bigger picture, guys. We're trying to win the chip this year, and we are so close, right? How would y'all feel if we got to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals and we were banged up and we ran out of bodies? You would never forgive the front office for not stacking up the depth. I don't think you could realistically be a championship contender and look at 14 guys on the roster. You need 15. And so we're in a financial bind right now. Kolek, clearly the organization doesn't trust him, in a playoff situation. I understand, and he needs opportunities, right? Yeah, these 1-year rentals and all that for Brogdon and these mercenaries, it might backfire, but I think it's still a safer option. I would trust those guys over a Kolek, in a playoff moment, right? Don't forget they're on non-guaranteed deals as well. So that gives you great flexibility. If another guy shakes loose at the buyout market after the trade deadline, or if another guy shakes loose or there's an injury, let's say a big man goes down, well, then you can cut one of the non-guaranteed guards to sign a big man. So with Tyler Kolek's salary and Dardier's salary, we're locked in. There's no flexibility about it. So the Knicks are opting for flexibility right now. Dirty says, I don't want them to trade Pac-Man, but if they did, it would open up $800K to sign a veteran midway through the season. Yeah, on top of also, the 15th guy, like you said, with Kolek moving on. Look, clearly the reporting's coming out that they do want Shamet and they do want Brogdon. So that means somebody has to go. And it's most likely going to be Kolek. But if it's Dardier, like you said, they'll be able to add the 15th guy. If it's only Kolek, then they'll be stuck at the 14 guys at this point in time. But look, it's a long way to look at the trade deadline. There could be some other guys become available, man. We could be talking about small moves right now in the grand scheme of things, right? What do y'all think if we get to the trade deadline and the Milwaukee Bucks are like, a horrid, 20 and, they're like a 15 and 25 record, and Giannis says, you know what, I've had enough of this, man. Get me the hell out of here. You need to look at what the front office is also doing with some flexibility. Del Mar says Deuce is in the last year of his deal. Let me double check that because I felt like Deuce has 2 years left. Maybe one of y'all can also clarify, but I'm just going to take a look at that right now because the years go by so quick, man. Deuce McBride, yeah, I think he's got one more year after this, fam. So he's got this year, the 25-26 season, and he's still under contract for the 26-27 season. But look, by then, he's going to be obviously a hot free agent at that point too. So yeah, you definitely got to look at the future and what's happening. The Autism Boy, salute, says Dink, Pate, Pacome Dardier, Muhammad Diawara, among others, might be our future within the Knicks squad, right? And you're a Jehovah's Witness saying this, CT. Appreciate ya for coming through, man. Represent. J Dub says trade will be Kolek and Deuce. Shamet and Brogdon is their replacement. Hopefully it's not Deuce. I would definitely keep him around because I think he's playoff proven as well. To me, it's a little bit too much of a gamble, shaking things up. So I get why the Deuce conversations, it's a touchy subject right now, man. But it's realistic because Ian Begley doesn't just throw things out there, man, unless conversations are happening. Also, Stefan Bondi is reporting that executives around the NBA are expecting the Knicks to make a trade to clear up these spots, fam. But to me, it has to be Kolek, right? It makes no sense to keep him if you're trying to stack up these other veterans with Brogdon, Deuce, Clarkson, Brunson. Don't forget Josh Hart handles the basketball a lot. Mikal Bridges needs to handle the basketball a lot as well. And so we're at the situation where even if you traded Dardier and you kept Kolek, I wouldn't be a fan of that because what's the point in keeping Kolek when you've got so many guys ahead of him? And you've also got Dink Pate, Kevin McCullough as well, waiting in the wings to... We got 100 people in the building. Appreciate y'all for coming through, keeping the streets buzzing. Smash that like button. Let us know how hype you are for the season ahead, man. This is the deepest squad I've seen in 25 years, fam. You could maybe make the case of the 2013 Knicks with Jason Kidd, Kurt Thomas, Camby, Rasheed Wallace, and J.R. Smith, Shump, Pablo Prigioni. I mean, man, that was an OG squad right there. But this is different because we got younger bodies. We got younger guys. We're probably more durable than that team as well. Jason Kidd was 40. I mean, some of y'all may not even been too young to remember, man. Some of y'all worried about 32-year-old Malcolm Brogdon's health, 33-year-old. Don't forget we had a 40-year-old Jay Kidd back in the day, man, playing major minutes. Trust this front office. Trust the training staff. They're going to keep these guys more healthy. And we're also trying to fill out the roster, 15 guys. As I said before, I think 14 guys is too risky. It's a long grind. It's a long season. And if it's just financially reasons why we can't sign 15 guys, then make a trade. AP says Silva will see. We'll see he goes to the LA Lakers or San Antonio. Things are crazy out there with the Clippers right now, man. Imagine if they were to void Kawhi Leonard's contract. Imagine if they were to be docked more picks, man. The Lakers would love that. Creative Lou, salute. The streets are buzzing, my friend. Most def. Great to see you come through the building. You guys are all on fire tonight, man. Hope you've had a blessed week. I said this a couple of weeks ago, but the Knicks always drop news on a Friday, man. I said it before. What happened yesterday? Major news dropped. It is what it is, man. A lot of organizations like to and reports like to come out on a Friday. J Dub says, CT, we must remember guys like Shamet and Brogdon and Mathews are only 1-year rentals. Next year will be over the cap. Players like Pate, Dadier, and Diawara and a first-round pick will be needed. Yeah, I feel like Summer League would have played a part because I was trying to think like, okay, what's the deal with all this trade talk? Clearly Mike Brown would have, sat there in Summer League and would have been like, okay, which guys do I feel like could actually help me now? And which guys do I think could be worth keeping around for the future? And look, whilst I don't want to read too much into Summer League, the fact that Kolek didn't have a great Summer League, that had to have hurt his stock. Let's be real. If Kolek had absolutely lit Summer League up and had 30 points and 8 dimes and 0 turnovers, no doubt he would have changed the perception of the organization, right? But the fact that he had a very poor Summer League, all but one game, that probably let the organization know that, he's a work in progress still, and he's 24, 25, we just don't have the time. But then they would have seen Dink Pate. They would have seen Dink Pate, and Dink Pate would have been, left them with that impression in the final game with 30 points and handling the rock, passing the ball with court vision, and finishing at the basket in transition as well. So that would have given them some food for thought as well. Now, Dardier had a very underwhelming Summer League as well because he got hurt and he wasn't able to showcase, what he can really do. So that could have played a factor as well. Autism Boy says, back then, Mike Woodson was the coach as well. Yeah, I got love for Woody, That year would definitely, it obviously ended sadly with the loss to Indiana. But yeah, we were really stacked. We lost that game 1 against Indiana, and that really hurt us. But we had so many OGs, man, so many Hall of Famers and legends on that squad. I think that was the J.R. Smith 6-man year as well as the Carmelo Anthony scoring title. AP says it, man, but Jason Kidd's career, literally, the wheels fell off right in front of us, fam. Definitely. It was an abrupt end, man. It was an abrupt end, just like Linsanity. Which career came to a screeching halt? Was it Linsanity or J Kidd? J Kidd was so close to retirement, man, that the minute he retired, he became an NBA coach for the Brooklyn Nets. That's how close to the other side he was. What's up, Todd? Great to see you. Dirty says probably just want reporters to not whine about no press conference by dropping it on Fridays. Yep, that's a good take as well. Everyone loves a feel-good news drop on a Friday too, so there can be no follow-ups as well. All the reporters want to get to their, drink o'clock and get to their weekend. J Dub says we was lucky to get Yabusele and Clarkson for that cheap. What next? We must keep Dardier and trade Deuce and Kolek, who is not needed due to Shamet and Brogdon. Look, I would trade Dardier and Kolek before Deuce, but I would definitely want to keep Dardier and Deuce, and I think we could work it out somehow, fam. I know we want to get to those 15 spots. We could wait for maybe the 10-day deals to come through. David says there's definitely that trade coming. Oh, most definitely, man. And look, I ain't sweating some of these young players too much because, look, the Knicks can buy second-round picks. They've proven that they can hit. Ariel Hukporti, Dink Pate, undrafted, Diawara, McCullough looks like he could be ready to contribute, right? James Nagy could be more of a stash guy, but we're trying to win right now, and how many guys can we trust in the playoffs? That's the thing, man. Don't forget, the statement Leon Rose released says we're singularly focused on winning that championship this year, right? Next year is something to obviously look at, I think, once this season's done, but The Knicks don't want to miss this opportunity, I don't think they want to mess this up by keeping too many young guys, that Mike Brown's not going to play. I mean, actions speak louder than words, guys. We're working out Garrison Mathews. We're working out, Thomas Bryant. We're bringing in Brogdon Shamet. We're prioritizing guys with experience over unproven commodities. We could debate the upside. We could debate how good this guy's going to be, how much we want to see these guys play as a New York Knick in the future. The bottom line is we don't really know what they're going to be able to produce, right? Mike Brown seems like a veteran type coach as well. And, in his first season, I think he definitely wants to, to rely on these vets. Yeah, you're in New York City, man, and back in 2013, you can remember how that was, man. Yeah, that was fun. That was such a ride that season, but obviously the Indiana series, man, left a sour taste. But we got to get them back, man. We got to get that sweet get back. Are y'all expecting much from Indiana and Boston this season? Well, I know they're missing their two lead guys, but it's not like the rest of their squad is bad. So I think that Indiana and Boston could still make the second round. So we might still be on a collision course to face a Boston or an Indiana in the second round, and I hope we do. I hope we do, because it'll be an opportunity to then, further put the punishment on those guys, man. I do think Benedict Mathurin is going to take a major leap. It's pretty obvious that he's going to get a lot more, opportunities. I think Rick Carlisle, man, even spoke on the Basketball She Wrote, Caitlin Cooper's podcast. Man, that's a shout out to Caitlin Cooper as well, because to get an NBA coach on your pod, but not only that, reveal their upcoming plan to start one of their guys, man. I only wish that the Knicks gave us that kind of level of access, man. Even training camp footage, man. I would love to get all access training camp footage, man, and see some of these scrimmages, man. Knicks fans would pay for it. A lot of these organizations, whether it be the Giants or, European soccer, Liverpool, one of the baseball franchises. I mean, a lot of these teams put members only access behind the paywall to watch, behind the scenes footage. And the Knicks don't do that, but they would earn a packet, right? If the Knicks charge like, I don't know, like a $10 monthly membership or something, and you get all access, behind the scenes videos and all of that, man, I would sign up. Yeah, we did address our major weakness. Let's hit on that. Dirty says we were bottom 5 in the bench scoring last year, and we added something like 40 points per game off the bench. Yeah, but everyone's going to be more fresh, so I think they're going to be more efficient. Now, I said this before, I don't care if Brunson's points per game goes down, but if he takes less shots and he's more efficient because he's fresh, then that's just going to be exactly what we want, man. I want Brunson taking less shots, but even more efficiency. Same with Karl Anthony Towns. Well, I just want Karl Anthony Towns to take more shots. I think Karl Anthony Towns can be an MVP candidate. Now, maybe not playing alongside Brunson, but that's the level of talent that Karl Anthony Towns is. If you gave him 30 shots a night, and they're good shots, he's going to score 30 points. Johnny's a Kolek believer. Says once Kolek gets his mojo going, he'll be the next Pistol Pete. Yeah, I like Kolek's game, and he's older, but obviously he hasn't had a fair opportunity here yet. Now, I feel like he could thrive in an environment where he's given the keys as the backup, on a team that doesn't have much pressure. I don't know who's the backup point guard on the Pelicans. I know Alvarado got hurt, but kind of like an Alvarado story where, the guy was unheralded and kind of came up out of nowhere and started to surprise people. if I'm Kolek and his agent, I'll be looking at opportunities like that. Where can I get 20 minutes a night, to show what I can do, man? Wouldn't it be funny if Indiana makes a call and says, you know what, TJ McConnell's he's gonna hang it up soon. We believe in Tyler Kolek. We want him to be the successor of TJ McConnell. How crazy would that be? Johnny says Ben Mathurin should be a Knick. I liked him coming out of the draft, shout out to the scouts. They definitely got a good pickup. I mean, they hit on all of their guys with, um, you've got Ben Mathurin, you've obviously got the other guys, Nemhard, Neesmith as well. Well, they took Neesmith from Boston, man. They definitely have to be regretting that. But yeah, the organization did put this out a few years back, but they see Deuce McBride as an off-ball guy. And it kind of surfaced after that Miami Heat series, the series that we lost 2 years ago, where kind of, we struggled with the bench minutes. Deuce came in, he was still wet behind the ears, had a couple of turnovers. Obi had a couple of turnovers, and then we lost that critical game, man, on the road. After that series and that summer, kind of things came out that they see Deuce as more of an off-ball guy, and he's definitely picked his game up as an off-ball scoring guard. Lights out shooter, and even Boston really respected Deuce McBride's stroke. They respected his game as an off-ball shooting threat. But the more that he handled the ball, it was pretty clear to see that the offense did stagnate. The offense did stagnate a bit with Deuce McBride as the primary ball handler. So I do expect Deuce to be playing the number 2 off the bench. Jordan Clarkson will be the backup point guard. And we'll see how that goes, because, I trust him more than I trust Tyler Kolek, right now. But yeah, these are the kind of videos that we will be seeing a lot more of, guys, coming through. These runs at the gym. But yeah, Knicks training camp will start, man, in less than 2 weeks, and they'll be taking that flight to Abu Dhabi to take on Philadelphia for those 2 games. One thing I want to ask y'all is about Mitchell Robinson now. What are y'all expecting for Mitchell Robinson? Because this is kind of a make or break situation. Not because he doesn't produce or he hasn't proven himself. He's absolutely proven himself. But what I say make or break is that this is the year that they make a long-term decision on Mitch, whether it's a long-term commitment, a deal, and they go over the second apron, or they decide, that they go in another direction. Now, Mitchell Robinson had an amazing playoff series, right? But he only played half of the season. Let's not forget, he came back in March. So he hasn't played a full season yet, going back since, I don't know when, man, since his rookie year. And so, if they're going to commit long term, which I hope that they do, it will still be a make or break year for Mitch, right? He's going to be healthy to start the season, and he's definitely our anchor and our defensive, anchor of the defense, and our best defensive big man. So I would like to see them reward Mitch with a long-term commitment. But yeah, this is the year where, he's going to be a free agent, coming up. Dirty Dancer says, if Mitch doesn't sign an extension, honestly believe he will be traded mid-season. Exactly. That's what I said. Yeah, it's kind of make or break decision for them. If we don't get that extension by the All-Star weekend, then, most likely there's going to be something come up. But you can't let him go. You can't move Mitch without a like-for-like replacement, because he's exactly what this squad needs, I wasn't convinced with Karl Anthony Towns at the 5. And I think you could definitely expose that in the playoffs. You could definitely, run that pick and roll with Brunson and Cat and attack those 2 guys, So I bring up this guy's name, Thomas Bryant. We've got Huck Porty as well. So it's going to be a big year for Huck Porty, right? If he, comes in and out with consistent inconsistencies and maybe an injury, then I think they're not going to entertain a move for Mitch at all. If Huck Porty shows that he could be really good, that could change their decision. But yeah, in regards to James Nagy, I think he's a work in progress. Like he doesn't look ready from summer league at all. Now things could change, with another year of development behind Mark Bryant. Some G League minutes. We'll see what happens with that. Fine, to get his extension. What do y'all think about that? Johnny says Knicks will make the prudent decision and re-sign Mitch and wait until they need to extend him. A prudent decision and wait, until they need to extend him. Yeah, I feel like it's prudent to wait because, you want to see him stay healthy from the beginning. But also, if he stays healthy and he plays as good or better, then that price tag is just going to go up. So I think if they can meet halfway, which is why I would definitely be, hopefully they're in dialogue with his agent right now and say, hey, we got I don't know, what is it, 4-year, 48 million, man. Maybe 12 per. Now he might look at it like, hey, that's a low ball deal. But we're like, man, that's guaranteed bread, man. 4 years for 50. 4 years, 48. Something like that. 4 years, 50 would be a pretty solid deal, right? I mean, all guaranteed money. But obviously, we've seen the free agent market can really be an enemy for y'all. It could dry up real quick. Look at Kuminga, qualifying offer. Quentin Grimes still can't get paid. Josh Giddey got paid, but less than what he wanted. Cam Thomas, qualifying offer. If y'all want to take the gamble, it could backfire real quick. Remember Nerlens Noel threw away $72 million trying to bet on himself. That was crazy. Dennis Schroeder still playing on a value deal when he was offered a $50 million deal as well. So not about to tell anyone what to do, but if I'm Mitch, if the Knicks offered him a 4-year guaranteed deal at a decent number, man, I would take it. You're set for life after that. Now, what's Mitch's upside? What would he hope to get? He could definitely be, let's say he continues to ball out, stays healthy. He'd be worth north of 18, 16, 18 per. I don't know about the 20 per. That's kind of like what Isaiah Hartenstein got. I do think the Isaiah Hartenstein thing was an overpay. Let's keep it a buck. Oklahoma really needed a center, and I do think I got love for Isaiah, and he's very effective at what he does, but he was kind of a bit part player with Oklahoma, right? I don't know if that's worth 22 or whatever he was earning, but the fact that Oklahoma was in such a great financial position, they could overpay. Appreciate your AP Autism Boy. Smash those likes. Great to have you with us in the conversation. The Wolf Perry, what's good? I like Thomas Bryant. He can shoot the 3 ball. Yeah, he's hungry. Anytime these veterans continue to have to wait every year for a vet deal, they come in, they want to prove it. They want to get a guarantee deal. Now, as the kind of 3rd, 4th string guy, I think it's a decision to make. Do these guys want to be on a good team and win a chip? Or do they want to, go on a lesser team and get more minutes as well? Michael Drake, Fritz in the building. Salute, gentlemen. Hope you're doing well. Demario, what's good? Let's keep Dardier, says Demario. Michael Drake says, who's leaving? Is it Kolek? yeah, it's hard to say who it's going to be, but it is going to be someone, man. And Kolek is the favorite to get moved. And I do think, yeah, I think Summer League played a major part. Like I said, the organization's never going to admit it, and you don't want Summer League to be the main reason. But let's be honest. Like I said, if Kolek was dropping 30 and 8 and no turnovers in Summer League, they probably would have, seen a future for him. And no need for Brogdon. But, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. So here we are. Brogdon is in the building. Damn. Proven playoff dude. And can stroke it. He's going to play less minutes. Let's see, can Casey Smith keep him healthy? That's going to be the major question, right? But there is pressure for Mike Brown, coming in. Imagine your first season with a team is championship or bust, right? Are you going to be confident looking down on the end of the bench and you're like, oh man, there's only 14, there's only, there's only a handful of guys on the bench that I can trust, and so I do think the Knicks are going to look at it like these two-way guys are the future, and whoever's actually going to be on the real roster on the bench, guys that I can trust, that's how it's going to be, guys. The two-way guys are the future, and we could work with those guys, So, salute to Wayne. What's good? And I'm going to have to get ready to wrap this baby up, right? Losing my voice, but hope y'all doing well, man. Great moves overall, and let's chop it up again, man, next week as we see what happens before training camp. I do expect Shamet, I expect Brogdon to make the squad, and I expect one of these guys to get traded, if not two. And I do think it's most likely going to be Kolek or Dardier, right? And obviously, Garrison Mathews is a guy that could be, in the G League. He's going to fight it out. He could take Landry's spot. Who knows? Right. These guys are playing for keeps, fam. So everyone in the building, salute to you. Appreciate you. Replay squad, salute. And the New York Knicks are coming to win that chip this year. Let's get it on the next one. Peace.